Hey, this is Sandy,
And Randy.
and we're here on AT Corner.
Being an athlete trainer comes with ups and downs, and we're here to showcase them all.
Join us as we share our world in sports medicine.
Welcome back to another episode of AT Corner. This episode is story time, and it's going way back to a simpler time.
A simpler time?
Yes, being a student, I feel like, you don't have as much responsibility as the certified. You're just learning, going through things. I feel like it's simpler than being certified.
Okay, I'll give you that, but I will tell you that I will never want to take another final again.
Oh, absolutely. Finals suck.
I think we can all agree on that. We don't have a single story about finals, I don't think.
I'm very surprised. I feel like more people would have something like that because that's like when everyone studies together. That's when the stress is high.
Actually, I have a story about a midterm.
Oh, I see. Here we go. And BOC studying too. I remember those stories.
Oh, yes. So actually, we have a lot of stories, and I feel like none of them really match up with each other. This is a very broad topic.
I'm intrigued. I can't wait to hear them.
Here, you can read the first one.
And this first one's from Jay. He runs the Real ATC's Instagram. During my time in undergrad, I was still in the Marine Corps Reserve, going away 1 weekend per month.
Wow.
I know, interesting. I was in an artillery unit, so we were always doing field operations anytime we went to base. This meant that any work or studying that needed to go towards any of my classes for the next week had no chance of being accomplished.
I thought it was hard enough having a job during my grad school. I don't know how he was doing all this.
That kind of job, yeah, that is definitely tough. My first program director taught our lower extremity evaluation class. Hey, mine too. And she never let us get by if we didn't know our stuff. She was extremely demanding of us, always testing us in class to see if we were up to speed on our anatomy, evaluation methods, palpations, etc. On a Monday after a weekend in the field, I went into my lower extremity class feeling at peace knowing I didn't have to prepare for anything. To my luck, my program director started off class with a manual muscle test review that we performed on our fellow classmates. Again, to my luck, I was in a field op when my classmates learned the newest manual muscle tests. We were asked to test all the peroneals, and I whispered to my classmate that I didn't know it, and she did the motion for me to help me out. I did the manual muscle test and saw my program director right next to me staring at me with the dirtiest look.
Oh, that's scary.
Oh, nothing makes it more stressful than that. My classmate was wrong, and my program director told everyone to take out a piece of paper and get ready for a pop quiz.
No!
Oh, no. It just keeps getting worse. Of course, she didn't remember I was not in class last Friday to learn it, nor did she care. To this day, this memory enrages me, but I always come to the understanding that it was one of those unlucky days where sometimes you just get screwed. It also made me realize that she set the bar so high because we need to set that standard for ourselves if we want to be good clinicians.
I mean, really, as a student, you have a really big safety net.
Big safety net, huge. I like what Jay said as far as the end is, the bar's set so high because that's what we should do for ourselves. It reminds me of the time that I was a struggle bus with the glucometer. We had this for one of our competencies, and the day before I practiced on all my fingers. I had 10 sore fingers just from practicing the finger prick. I was like, I'm going to rock this. I got this. Get into the comp, the little scenario deal, and the professor that was running it he was a stickler. He made sure we knew our stuff. He was the one always to ask why with no expression. So you didn't know if oh, am I on the right track or if I'm completely off? So you just assume I'm completely off. So get in the comp, right? I'm doing my thing. I pricked my finger once. I didn't get enough blood.
Of course you didn't.
Of course I didn't. So then I had to prick another finger. Same problem. So finally...
What were you doing to not get enough blood from your finger?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't know why I was struggling at this. But finally, he was just tired of waiting and was just, okay, well, let's just talk about it. Say you found this reading. Oh, and then I had to explain it, and it just went downhill from there. Safe to say, I had to redo the comp 3 times.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, because the second time, it wasn't good. He asked more difficult questions, and I was not ready for. But safe to say now, I'm good on glucometer.
You know, one comp that I just could not get because I did not even remember learning it was a thumb tape. Do not know
Really?
why. Yeah.
How do you feel about thumb taping now?
I just remember, well, I love thumb taping now, but I just remember I walked into the comp and she was like, okay, do an ankle tape. And I was like, great, I could do that. And she was like, okay, do a thumb tape. And then I
Ooh,
literally
major curveball.
I looked at all the tape because it's all laid out, right? I looked at all the tape and I was like, okay. And I just literally like taped the thumb, but I definitely did not do a spica.
Hey, at least you put tape on a thumb.
I put tape on a thumb.
That might do something.
Yeah, I was not ready. So this next one is actually a super fun, like I kind of want to do this myself now.
Okay.
So Mayrena put together a relay, like a like athletic training Olympics.
Oh, I know how this feels.
She said they had events like blind taping, where the athletes judged the quality of it. Oh, that's funny. Ice bag on a shoulder, 60-yard crutch race, 200-yard water gallon race, and rehab obstacle course that was all single leg.
What? Oh my, I want to see the obstacle course. I wonder what that looked like.
She did send some videos.
Ooh, I can't wait.
But it just mostly of the blindfold taping, I think, if I'm remembering correctly.
That's still pretty cool.
I know. We had the AT students from the different teams within our athletics department compete against each other, and each preceptor trained the AT students specifically for these events. This was done across an entire building, different AT rooms, sprinting to the track, and sprinted back inside to the buildings to an entire hallway of rehab obstacle.
So my question is for the blindfolded taping. Did they use pre-wrap as the blindfold?
I don't think so.
That one cracks me up when people are wrapping their head with pre-wrap as the blindfold. That's pretty funny. Nothing gets more athletic training than that.
Actually, you know what this reminds me of? This is my midterm story. So one time we were taking a midterm. I think it was like an uppers or something. And of course, naturally, we don't usually take tests online, but for some reason that day we were taking our tests on our iPads and the Wi-Fi went out. So then...
Of course it did.
So then my professor was like, all right, well, we're not going to get the Wi-Fi back, so stool races. And
which I feel like is the correct alternative to what you were doing.
So then basically what happened was our ATR was set up where there was 2 doors and then like a hallway that was like shaped like a U. Super weird. So basically if you opened both doors, there was a circle around the ATR. So, or around and then the 2 doors that would go into the ATR. So then basically we split into 2 teams and we would sit on a stool and then you had to scoot yourself around the entire circle and then tag the next person to get on the stool and then scoot around the entire... It was so much fun.
I bet it was more fun than taking a test.
Best alternative. Best alternative.
Yeah, that I remember when I was working as a GA, the power went out in like the building. So we couldn't do any treatments because, power's out. So we went out into the hallway, and at that time there was a class going on. It was probably like lower extremity eval or like something like that. And instead of just doing something fun like that, they moved tables out and kept going with class.
Dedicated.
That was dedicated. I was like, that's got to be hard to regroup and be like, oh, I'm doing eval now with the power out.
I would be so mad. You know what a power outage doesn't affect?
What?
Going to clinicals.
That's true. A power outage may not affect that. I guess maybe in some
Actually, you know what it really doesn't affect? Injuries that occur.
That's true. Look at these links we're making. Injuries do always happen.
So Gabby was talking about one of her rotations where her preceptor set up an injury.
Oh, I've seen that before.
Have you ever had that?
I haven't, no. But some coworkers of mine, when they had students, they'd do that.
One of my preceptors did that to me, and I took it very seriously. I thought someone broke their bone.
Well, that's the whole point of setting it up, is make it feel real.
This one's a lot better than the one I had, though. You want to read it?
Yes. So this one's by Gabby L. At my last rotation, my preceptor set up an injury. Softball was at practice, and we were in the ATR doing something else. One of the girls ran in saying someone was hurt bad. I think they said they got a ball or bat to the face, and it was one of their best players.
Okay, so softball and baseball, like those are I would say they're pretty chronic injury sports.
9 times out of 10, yes.
I feel like when you're working those sports, you are not expecting an acute injury, which I think is the hardest to go from just enjoying the game because I really enjoy working football. When I'm on the football sideline, I'm always on edge waiting for an injury. I feel like on the softball or baseball, I'm not always on edge waiting for an injury like that. So those ones really take me off guard.
Imagine working track. That's how it always is. Most time you're just like, overuse. And then when something happens, you're like, oh no.
Yeah, and track is like so big. There's so many places. If it happens on the other side of the field.
Yeah, usually if it's emergency in track, it's really bad. Either like something happened at pole vault, the hammer hit someone. Scary stuff.
I mean, so is a ball, or actually
bat to the face. So we grabbed our packs and got the cart to head out. When we were driving over, she said, "You got the lead."
Her preceptor said that.
I was so excited and nervous. So the player was our catcher, and she was laying by home plate. I ran over and asked what happened, but she was deaf, not okay. Look at that lingo. I cleared C-spine and got her up and into the cart. Now, the story that the teammate told me that happened didn't really match up with what I came out to the field. That should have tipped me off on this, but I did my eval and everything pointed towards concussion.
Dang.
In my head, I'm just like, frick, playoffs are next week, and this is our best player, and I'm the one who has to tell her she can't play the last games of her senior season.
Ugh.
I had so many knots in my stomach. When I told my preceptor what my conclusion was, she was so serious. And in my head, I'm like, what did I miss? And then she said, thanks to the athlete. And I'm so confused, and they started laughing. I was set up. I was so flustered the rest of the day. There were so many flags that showed me something was up, but my AT skills just took over. That is a good problem to have, I'd say.
I know, I guess that's a better outcome.
Yeah, it's better than most autopilot, which is usually worse. So the fact that just instinct and AT skills came in this scenario, I think that's a good problem to have, Gabby.
She actually sent in another story too. She said there was one time for my football rotation, we forgot to grab one of the bags with all of our white tape.
Oh no.
We got to our away game and we barely had anything. My preceptor was pissed. It was packed. It was just never put in the van. Luckily, the head AT at the visiting school gave us some tape.
Have you ever done that before?
Okay, not with tape, but with the same preceptor at a different time. One time I put up a to-do list on our bulletin board, but I didn't have a pin. And so I used the same pin as the packing list. That was a really bad mistake because the people who were packing, who were not athletic training students, they were just like work study. I do not know why they were able to pack without our packing list because our packing list was very long. They did not include the emergency equipment.
Oh, no.
And guess whose fault that was?
Of course.
It was my fault because apparently I covered their packing list with a see-through piece of paper, by the way. So I got in so much trouble and I did not live that one down.
Yeah, forgetting emergency equipment, that can be a big no-no.
Yeah, really. Luckily, we didn't need it.
Luckily, I mean, granted, I don't play. Luckily, I don't cover football anymore, but I can honestly say I never forgot the tape. We forgot flex wrap one time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't fun. But it was a minor error compared to losing white tape, so I felt pretty good about it.
Yeah, white tape's a big deal.
That is a big deal.
So is emergency equipment. Yes,
definitely. Especially in football.
Actually, you know what? There was another story I actually had from that same rotation that's a lot funnier. So, you know, when like you're getting ready for football practice and all the guys like jump up on the taping tables and you know, most of them, they're getting ankle tapes. That's most of them what they're doing. Well, one of the guys jumped up, and this is like, I don't usually work with this guy. he jumped up and goes, "Oh, I'll get the usual." And I thought he was like kidding. And so
Oh no, you autopilot, huh?
yeah, so I mean, there are some guys who have like maybe you do moleskin with them, maybe you do elasticon, like whatever. But so I just asked him like, "Oh, you just get normal, right?" And he said, "Yeah." He just went with it. So I pull out all my supplies, what I need. I start taping his ankle. I get through both of his ankles, full ankle tape. That's when he decides to look at me and say, "Wow, this feels so good. What did you do?" And I looked at him like, "What? What are you talking about?" Apparently, he just wanted his blisters covered. That was what he meant by usual.
See, you autopilot. You hit autopilot. You just thought ankle tape. Well, his blisters were probably covered.
They were covered, and so were his ankles.
Lots of support. Lots of support was happening.
I was like, "How come you didn't stop me? Well, at least like after the first ankle." And he's like, "I don't know. I thought you were doing something really cool."
Ankle taping is cool. That is a correct response.
Yeah. It was so funny. Here's another funny one.
This one's by David T. So I walk into the ATR late at night. Don't remember why, but most likely wanted ice for my Yeti. I see my classmate, Juan, cleaning up coolers. Mind you, it's probably 10 or 11 p.m. I decided to give him a hand, so I start drying the coolers.
Oh, what a nice
What a good
classmate.
friend, yes. See, family. He proceeds to turn the faucet to continue rinsing some of the coolers. He must have ate his Wheaties that day because he turned the knob so hard it snapped on him. Oh my goodness. The face he gave me was priceless. The "I effed up" / "this day needs to just end" face. Oh, we've all been there. I know that feeling. We tried to just put tape on it.
Tape fixes everything, right?
To stop the leak because, just use tape for everything, which is valid. Tape obviously isn't working, so we put a towel over it and use at least 2 rolls of Leukotape to cover. I'm sorry that my heart dropped. I love Leukotape, and I know how much that costs.
Leuko is my favorite.
And to see it just go away that way breaks my heart. The pressure was pretty intense for a faucet. Juan is able to get a hold of one of the preceptors and explains to them what happened. If I remember correctly, we went to campus security to ask for maintenance to come take a look at it. By the time we got back, another preceptor showed up and was assessing the damage. Luckily, he felt bad and told both Juan and I to go home, and he would take care of it. We eventually left, and the faucet was down for at least a day. That will be by far the funniest day as a student. Just seeing Juan's face made all the headaches worth it.
Oh my goodness. That's so funny. You know what that reminds me of is at my undergrad, when I was still an observation student, for some reason, the keys to the storage cabinet were actual keys, but everything else was a swipe card. I want to say there was only one master key.
Okay.
So one of the athletic training students at the time went over to the storage cabinet and was fiddling with the lock. And I was standing behind him because I was waiting to put one of the pumpers back. And all of a sudden, he like stops what he's doing and he turns around and looks at me. And I look and he's holding just the edge of the key. The rest of the key was stuck in the door.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, really, really bad. And so now, like, whenever I have a key, I'm super scared that it's going to break off. So I'm, like, super careful with it. But I just remember that day, his face. And then also now it's a swipe card.
Oh, thank goodness. It's hard to mess that one up on the same scale.
Yeah, really. I don't think I've ever seen anyone break a swipe card in a swipe.
So going back to what David said about this day just needs to end look, that happened to me. Probably at the same place, because when I was a student, one of my rotations was with fall baseball. So we were playing a fall ball game. It was our first one, so I was, getting the setup ready. Well, first, I forgot the bottles. I had coolers out there. I had cups out there. Didn't have bottles. So before the game, I had to rush back to the athletic training room, get the bottles, and, rush them back out. Oh, it didn't stop there. Towards the end of the game, we need to ice someone, so we have a giant roll of bags in the dugout for us, so we don't have to bring them from the athletic training room. We just keep it out there. So naturally, I was going to be cool and have it with one hand and unroll it real quick. Nope, I dropped it, and it rolled across the dugout. What a great day.
Have you ever spilled a 10-gallon? Ever feed the concrete?
I have... No, I have not. I've dropped empty coolers off a cart, but I haven't spilled like the actual full coolers.
Really?
Yes, I can be pretty proud that I have not done that.
Actually, I don't think I have either, but I've definitely come close. One time I was working on a project where I was digitizing a lot of old health files, like health screens, like when we used to do paper and then we were switching over to EMR. Man, I did not account for the fact that it was a windy day, and I took the cart with a bunch of old health screenings that I was supposed to shred.
Oh no.
I was walking around the building because the way that it was set up, you couldn't walk through a certain way with the cart. Like, you had to walk all the way around the building. Yeah, I definitely had to chase after some health screenings because that's not some stuff that you can just let fly.
No, that just can't just be okay to go away.
So our next one's actually from Joe, who we had on for an interview, I think, last episode.
Yes, we did.
So he's actually, speaking of, actually, this is perfect segue. Water coolers.
Gotta love cleaning the coolers. That's always the most fun task as an athletic trainer.
You know how they say some memories just stick with you?
I think we gotta hear this one from Joe.
Now, there's always someone that leaves an impression on you, right? So I remember when I was a student AT, there was a volunteer EMT that was with us during football season. And, after the game, you have to clean up. Coolers are the last thing you want to clean. So you just want to dump out the water. You want to wash it, wipe it, and store it, right? But what's funny is when we started dumping the water out, we don't care where we dump it. We can dump it on the grass, on the concrete, on dirt. But this EMT would come up to us if ever we dumped it on the grass, and he'd be very meticulous and say, "Hey, don't dump the water on the grass." And we're like, "Okay, where should we dump it then?" He's like, "Well," and then he physically brought us, like held our hand type of brought us to the drain and said, "Dump it here." And we looked at him like, "What? We just trying to get out of here." Right? So every time it was time to dump out the coolers, we would look around to see if he was there, and if he was there, then we'd have to go to the drain and dump it. Otherwise, he'd literally come over and lecture us and say, "Well, the grass is blah 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 blah." So I'm telling you, 20 some odd years later, whenever I'm dumping a cooler, I still think about him.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's crazy.
I'm thinking, should I dump it on the grass? I don't know. I might kill it. Yeah, so that's a crazy story. So he left a lasting impression on me.
I would say.
Yes, I would definitely say so.
So I think the part that really cracks me up with this story is the fact that he grabbed them and like physically walked them to where he thought they should drain the water. Like,
I mean, he's trying to make a difference, I guess.
He's trying to make a difference. I just think it's so funny. Like, the picture that I had in my mind is a grown man grabbing another grown man and taking him, no, here, right here.
Mansplaining.
Man, definitely mansplaining.
Honestly, I kind of want to know the reason why they couldn't dump in the grass.
So my impression is that it would drown the grass.
Well, okay, I know one of the places that I work has a big sign in the grass that says, "Do not put ice in the grass," which makes sense because ice is not good for the grass. By the way, PSA, ice is not good for grass. But I didn't know that.
Wait,
I don't know
really?
about what. Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Now you know there's a big sign.
There's a big sign. Thank you.
Little EMT spreading his knowledge. His grass safety.
Yeah, he was just trying to save the grass.
Actually, speaking of emergencies, we have someone who submitted a story about their emergency room rotation, which is super unique.
Oh, that's unique. Yeah, that's really unique.
And I'm kind of very jealous.
Yes, I know you are.
I think that I would thrive in the emergency room. So Natalie S said, "I had a clinical rotation in an emergency room and I loved it. They allowed me to be so hands-on and I learned so much. It was really a sink or swim experience. I followed different healthcare professionals. It was really what you made it. It was at a very small hospital, so only one physician working at a time, and if they liked you or liked students, Then you could observe and assist with sutures, splinting, orthopedic evals, ABGs, really anything they wanted.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Some nurses would take us under their wing for the evening. If for whatever reason the MD and nurses were working that night and they didn't want students around, we'd hang out with the rad techs who showed us the ins and outs of x-rays, CTs, and mammograms. They loved having us around.
Oh, that's really cool.
Honestly, this is just, I mean, there's more, but this alone is really cool to see outside of kind of what our scope is.
Yeah.
And then also seeing what other healthcare professionals are doing and how it all comes together.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And how the kids say I'm a super jelly. See, I got it. I got the lingo.
For example, one MD said, I can fix anything you do, so if a shoulder dislocation comes in, you're reducing it tonight. Oh,
That's definitely what you want your like preceptor, or in this case the doctor, saying like, I can fix whatever you do. Like, all right, I get to try some stuff
at the patient's expense.
That's true.
And another MD a different night say, well, I don't really like students, so do whatever you like, just don't get in the way.
All right.
So then I'd go hang out with the radiology and the CNAs. We'd go twice a week for 4 to 5 hour shifts for a whole semester, but if it was busy and the physician was okay with it, then I'd stay well into 7 to 8 hours.
Hopefully you didn't log those hours, because I know some people are sticklers about that.
It was a small community, so the connections were great. Our head athletic trainer was a paramedic that knew the emergency room, and our director had been at the school for 30 plus years and built the program very well.
Nice.
Yeah, talking about using your connections.
Oh, absolutely.
So I asked her, were there any like specific standout memories? And she said, this was the closest ER to 2 ski resorts. So there were lots of gnarly clavicle fractures and a forearm skin avulsion from a snowboard edge.
Interesting.
I also watched them reduce a lot of distal radius fractures, which I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
A few standouts, though, were abuse cases where a girl had a switchblade stuck in her quad. Oh, my goodness.
Wow, I didn't see that one coming.
But swore it was an accident, and we saw many prisoners, including a frequent flyer who was an epileptic. He actually ended up seizing during a CT scan, and after the machine was shut off, I was closest to the door and therefore caught him to prevent his head from hitting the floor. Orange jumpsuit, wrist, and ankle shackles. It was a scene out of a movie. The nurses there knew him well. He was a pretty nice guy who had done some very bad things. I also learned a lot about gen med conditions and the way prescription meds are administered. Being in a rural area, I witnessed people come in with drug overdoses of all kinds, especially meth and opioids.
Oh, see, that's very important now, because, even NATA is having like sessions on it about how athletic trainers have a role in the opioid crisis and like how we can help like mitigate that issue. So I think that's very important that you had such a head start.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like there's not a big emphasis on drug in our world, but there should be.
Yes.
And I think that's changing a little bit.
Yes.
But it's really cool that you got to see that. At the end of the day, it was incredible to see how the providers didn't care about background. They truly only wanted to help these people. Anything very serious or surgical was shipped to bigger hospitals.
Yeah, man, that's a pretty cool experience to have. Like, a lot of us just go through like, a physician rotation where it's probably the team doc of the university that your program's at or something like that. But to have like an actual ER rotation, that's pretty unique.
I definitely liked my physician rotation.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Or I guess the few physicians that I got to shadow. But being at the clinic is a lot different than being in the ER.
Oh, definitely.
So you observed surgery, right, Randy?
Yes, I have.
I really enjoy that. Honestly, I think that if I didn't want to stick with athletic training, I would probably go into some sort of surgical route.
I feel like you'd definitely be a better surgeon than me. You're pretty good with your hand-eye coordination.
It's all that crafting.
Yeah, it's all that crafting. My hands get a little shaky, so I don't think I'd be a good surgeon.
We did get a surgery story, actually.
Yes, we did. So this story is by Scott M. I went to observe surgery twice, I think. I loved watching and mentally had no problems, but my subconscious doesn't like watching the gnarly parts. Doc was resetting a displaced radial fracture, but since ulna was intact, he had to brute force that bad boy. I'm sorry, that one got me. And my brain said, nope, and got super lightheaded and had to take a knee before they got me a stool. Loved watching, though. ACL was rad, and glenohumeral labrum on one of my volleyball girls. Awesome stuff. You know what's funny is that's kind of what my surgeries were. I did a labral tear, and then Oh, I did a UCL, and I think I did do an ACL. Not 100% sure.
That's a lot different than the ones I've seen, but do you get like woozy?
So if I don't eat breakfast that day and I'm at surgery, I'll get a little, like my stomach will kind of like churn a little bit and I'll feel a little weird, but so far it's been good. But that reminded me of when we were students, it was our first opportunity to observe surgery. And we built it into like our program where one semester you had to see at least one lower extremity, and then the next semester you'd see one upper extremity surgery. And this was our first opportunity to do that. So one of my classmates, she was first up, right? She made her appointment to go observe. She went and observed. Apparently later that day, she texted us, or like when she was done, that she almost passed out and they had to lay her down in the OR with her feet propped.
Oh,
What a way to start for us. So we're like, oh no, what are we in for?
I wonder how many athletic trainers, maybe we should put this up on maybe this could be the question of the week.
Ooh, this is a good question of the week. We better write this down before we forget.
We got it recorded.
That's true, we do.
Yeah, I definitely am interested in knowing how many people are comfortable watching surgery and how many people are woozy. I don't have a better word than that. Is woozy the right word?
Woozy, I think woozy's accurate. Also, another favorite memory of mine is because when you're a student, you just want to be in it and you want to learn. So you keep like getting closer to the screen and getting closer, and they always have to tell you, hey, can you back up?
I don't know what you're talking about. You're getting in people's space?
I really wanted to see what was going on, so I was like looking, and then they always tell you, don't touch the blue.
Oh, you can't touch the blue.
Don't touch the blue. I didn't even look at the blue. I was scared. I felt like if I would have like looked at it, they would have been like, hey, don't even think about the blue.
Man, I can't wait till we can go back and watch surgery again.
I know, me too. I think about that. You know, it's a bummer because before COVID, I always thought about like, oh, you know, I should take some time and see, you know, if one of the docs that I've worked with before would, you know, mind letting me observe surgery. But then you're like, oh, I got time. You know, I'm a little busy right now, but I'll do it later. And now that COVID happens and we really don't have that opportunity now, I'm like, dang it, I should have did that.
Hindsight's 2020. Too soon?
We don't talk about 2020 here.
Okay, so this next one, like real serious, real quick. The next one we're going to put a trigger warning on because we are going to talk about bombs. One of our listeners brought in a story about working the 2013 Boston Marathon. And so if you guys need to tap out, go ahead and do that now. We'll see you next week. If not, then this story gave me goosebumps. I don't have many words for this. We're so lucky to be able to have this to share with you guys. I'm not going to be able to give this a good intro, so I think we should just give her the floor.
Yeah, let's hear from Jordan R.
So when I was a student, I was an athletic training student from 2011, and then I graduated in 2014. So my junior year, a couple of my classmates and I had found out through just from like different events that we had worked in clinicals that you could work as a student. Obviously, you didn't get paid, but you got like hours and you got some swag to work at the Boston Marathon. They have, I think, there were at least like 10 programs that I had seen that were involved. Athletic trainers like Baseline are always helping that event just because of our background and our expertise and, you know, just kind of prepared for everything, hope for nothing type of skill set, I think is advantageous to be at those events. So me and my classmates got together. There was 5 of us that wanted to do it. We needed to have a chaperone from our program. So we went around asking some of our professors, one of whom was one of my mentors. He taught our Therex program, our Therex class, and we all just really enjoyed being around him. He was just like a nice guy, and we were just like, hey, do you want to be our chaperone? You'd have to come do this like all day with us, and he couldn't make it work with his schedule. And he was bummed about it because he was like, that'd be a cool experience. So one of our program directors came with us instead. Equally very nice. You know, she helped us kind of get situated. We had to get there really early, like 7 a.m, I think we had to get there. So getting into the city by like 6:30 and then like making our way down. Because where the marathon is, it's kind of right in our downtown area, pretty busy area that the end of the race comes through. Because it starts in one town and then ends in Boston. So it's not like a connected loop.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one start and start and end. So there's a lot of logistics that have to be kind of filed out with who's on the race course helping out runners and who's at the end. There's 2 big medical tents at the end. There's the first one that's right, like maybe 20 yards past the finish line. It was tent A, and then further down the street, Boylston Street is where the race ends. Further down Boylston Street is they get their medals, they get some bananas and snacks, and then some more medical staff, folks with wheelchairs, which was what we did. We kind of had the wheelchairs ready. And then around the corner was medical tent B. So if someone further down that street kind of was having some trouble, we had another place to kind of bring them. So that's kind of like the schematics of how the whole place was laid out. So then the year that me and my classmates decided to volunteer and do this really cool event was 2013. So it was the year that the bombings happened. That morning was pretty typical, normal. I would say, like, weather was great. The one thing I did remember, and it only kind of, made sense, not made sense, but kind of was like, that's interesting that happened earlier in the day, because it's kind of what I thought happened later. When they were setting everything up inside the tent, the power went out. Like, all the power inside the tent went out, all the lights, all the computers they had going. So I just thought, like, oh, okay, so there's a lot of equipment running through here. They lost some power. They got it back up in a couple of minutes. Everything was cool. So there's a lot of communications going through that area. They have a lot of like ham radio operators working in that area. There's a real big, like, kind of networky presence and like a lot of power running through that kind of one finish line area. So I just kind of filed that into like, oh, interesting. And then, the day went on. Perfect day. The marathon in Boston's hit or miss. It could be gorgeous. It could be 90 degrees. It could be like downpour and raining and freezing. So it was a beautiful, like, 60s, sunny, like not a cloud in the sky day. I was pretty, inspired by the runners finishing. A lot of folks who were like finishing it in 3 hours and were like bummed at their times. I'm like, that's incredible. You just finished that in 3 hours. So I was getting really like inspired. I was like, I can't wait to run this one day. I'm from this area, so it'd be like a hometown race for me. It would be like really exciting to get to do this one day. And this was around like 2:00. So like the TVs don't really record much or like, show much of the race after like the elite runners finish. And there's not much for us to do until like the regular kind of like population starts to finish. I remember bringing back one of the elite runners finish, and I got her in a wheelchair and brought her back. They have their own suite. But other than that, we're just kind of standing around waiting. So as things were going around 2 p.m., things were kind of like wrapping up in terms of like the fanfare of all the big runners finishing. And the first bomb went off further up on Boylston Street around, it was like 2:48, I think the time was. And everyone just got really quiet. We're all on Boylston Street. I saw it go up, and the first thing I thought was like, oh, like the power went out earlier. Maybe like that was a transformer that we had connected up to everything, and that just blew up because there's so much going on. And everyone kind of around us was just kind of like looking, and no one really was saying anything. And there were some other students next to me. We all had kind of like our wheelchairs just kind of like ready to go, help anyone that needed it. And then the second one went off further up the street from where we were, down Boylston. It was kind of really didn't like take it in as like that just happened. But there were some folks next to me. I think there were other students who kind of rightfully started to freak out a little bit. So I kind of looked at them, and I just said, if you're uncomfortable, I would just head down the street and go to the second medical tent and just kind of hang tight there. And then, so there were some people that did that. And then I think that was when I realized that it wasn't, transformer. It was definitely something deliberate just happened. So I promptly called my parents, because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get in touch with them anytime soon. So I think I called my mom first, and she was gardening. And I was trying to explain to her what happened, but she was so confused. So I was just basically like, something happened here. I'm not sure what it is. I just want to let you know I'm fine. I was like, but I'm sure the news will pick this up very soon. And then same thing to my dad. He was, he had a normal work day, so he was on the road. And then after that, no phone. You can get no phone calls out after that. No phone calls in or out. They did that purposely. They kind of cut all cell communication. So then it was tough for me because I was with myself. I didn't have anybody else with me, and I knew the rest of my like classmates were kind of scattered about that street, between the medical tent and kind of being on the course right at the finish. I didn't know where anybody was. And then all of a sudden, one of my classmates just came like running up, and I kind of looked at him and I was just like, I think that was a bomb. He's like, well, you can't say that. And I'm like, I mean, I'm not saying it because I want to scare anybody, but what else would that have been? And he just kind of like looked at me. He's like, I don't know. So we both kind of looked at each other. Everyone was running in the opposite direction. And we just like looked at our wheelchairs and like, I looked at him. I was like, we have to go see if we can do anything. And he was kind of like, I don't know what we can really help here, but okay. So we just kind of rolled up to the front of the first med tent. And I kind of looked at people and I was like, do they need any help? And they were like, yeah, there's bodies everywhere. And I was like, okay. I was like, I didn't know like what I was about to walk into. And that, for whatever reason, that wasn't something that I was expecting to hear from anybody. So him and we started I looked at him, I was like, we just have to go. So we went in. I actually ran into one of my other classmates. He has the same name as me, interestingly, the other Jordan. And we both kind of looked at each other and I was like, do you need any help? And he was like, no, I think like between the time of them going off and the time we got up there, they had everybody that survived in ambulances and gone. So it was the most like controlled chaos I had ever. I got into the medical tent. They had somebody like limping up and they put her in my wheelchair and I brought her in. And there's a guy that when you finish the marathon, he like welcomes you back to Boston, and he's kind of like a carnival barker, or a auctioneer. Like he's just going so fast, but you were listening to him tell you what to do, and you knew exactly who he was talking to. It was crazy, very surreal, kind of like floaty moment. But you knew what you were doing because he was telling you, and you were just kind of acting on it. And I came into the tent, and he said, coming in to triage 2. Because I looked up and they had changed the way that the medical tent was set up into, areas where like physical therapy before, and it was like, check-in or whatever. It was all very like kind of organized, but then they had changed everything. They pulled down the signs and wrote new signs, and it was triage 1, 2 on the left, and then 3 and 4 towards the back. And then where they had folks that were having, any like hyponatremic or any kind of like overheating, heat stroke issues, they had a separate kind of cordoned off area where they could do like conversions and rectal temps. They had a like kind of off to the side and out of the way and covered. And above that, instead of that being that area, it said morgue. And that again, like you're hearing that something really bad happened and all these things happened, but until you see it yourself, you like don't really believe it, even though it's like happening right in front of you. So that was another moment where I just had to like kind of like take that in, file for like dealing with it later, and just kind of keep going. So the person, it was just a spectator, she wasn't even a runner, obviously. Brought her over to triage 2, and a nurse grabbed her, got her on a cot. They started taking care of her. We looked around, just kind of see like what else we could do. It was definitely at that point, like I felt my skills were very limited in helping. And that frustrated me, and it made me really upset that I couldn't do more. It was definitely like a pit in the stomach. Like I wish I could do anything right now, and I really can't. We linked up with one of the athletic trainers who kind of helped coordinate all the schools. He said we could help kind of string up some saline bags. They were giving people fluids. So we did that, finally connected with the rest of my class, and one of our other classmates, who's one of my greatest friends, he was in the Marines. So I was most worried about him because it opened up a big wound for him. After kind of like a time after, he was kind of like, yeah, I had put everything that happened to me, over in the Marines kind of in a box, and I put it away, and I never thought I would have to open it back up, especially at home. So, he had definitely had to take some time with, between us is like a group and with family, just kind of getting together and, you know, just being around each other, having the shared experience and kind of being able to like get it off our chests. And, you know, everyone had a different story that day because we were all in different places, and, you know, just kind of working through it together. It was kind of the way we moved forward. But after things were kind of settled and they were trying to have people leave, they you know, they had us leave, and you could have told me it was like that whole thing took like 5 minutes or it took like 2 hours. I wouldn't have known because their time was like not even registering. So we left. We couldn't go anywhere. They stopped all travel in and out of Boston completely, flight, train, bus, anything. So we just had to walk. We walked down Beacon Street, which is kind of parallel to where Boylston is. And one of our friends' brothers, the manager at a hotel kind of further down. So we walked all the way down there, and that was kind of when, for me at least, I was kind of processing like, oh, that was like a close call. Like one of us could have been near any of that. You know, we could have someone we know been in the crowd and spectating. Like, we have no idea. And I had, you know, my professor that was with us had to kind of like put her arm around me. She was like, "We're okay. You're okay." And I was like, "I know." I was like, but it's just kind of all hitting me that like that just happened. So then we got to the hotel, and they had a hotel bar, and I don't know if this is inappropriate, but we took shots with our professor because she was like, "I don't know what else to do for you guys, so let's get some shots of Crown and let's just take a minute." And I was like, "Okay, I think that is a good idea." I finally got back in touch with my parents, and they were able to come get me there at that hotel. And yeah, it was really emotional, even though, like, you know, again, like I think I had mentioned to you in that mess, nothing happened to me. I was just like there in that vicinity and just kind of like having it all be taken in just through my eyes. Like, none of the trauma happened to me. It was just there experiencing it. And I think more for me, it was like I couldn't do anything, and I felt very helpless. And that, as an athletic trainer, I think resonates because, you know, we want to be there. We want to be that person that helps. We are that person that helps. You know, I still have athletes text me today being like, "Hey, like my knee hurts," and I haven't been their athletic trainer since they were like 18. They're now like 24. So I'm like, you know, that persona is definitely like within me. So, you know, even at that early age, still as a student, I was like, I couldn't do anything, and I hate that feeling. I never want to have that feeling again. So as a group, we got together and petitioned, because the program we were at was kind of wanting to, you know, give us counseling, which is, I think, the appropriate thing to do. But we kind of did our own thing, which worked for us. And then they wanted to interview us and do all these things, and we just weren't really interested in that. We petitioned to instead have the program add a EMT basic course to the athletic training program, which we piloted. We took two of us or three of us took that following semester, which was great. I thought it helped me a lot as a certified once I was done managing like acute injuries and working with EMTs. So I didn't sit for my boards, but I did like the practical. I just didn't do like the written test because I was like, I have what I need. I don't like want to go work as an EMT. I just like want the skill set and, you know, just to know how to communicate with emergency services. But now it's a part of the program. So students come in, they take that course, they can become EMTs basics too. Get them, you know, some more experience like as EMTs if they wanted to. But again, I think it's very useful to have, you know, we're definitely the profession that, like I said, prepares for everything, hopes for nothing. So I felt like that. Obviously, there's an extreme case for me and us not having, you know, the skill set to be able to handle such a crazy experience, a mass casualty event that was, you know, beyond anyone's imaginations for that day. And again, it's just, you know, looking for patient safety, athlete safety. And I think that was an important skill to kind of come out of it. The bright side to come out of such a, you know, sad and scary event is that, you know, we can just become more prepared and then kind of pass that forward as we go on and into our professions in different areas of the profession.
My goodness, that
Yeah.
story gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, seriously. Wow.
Yeah, it was definitely an experience. It pushed me to, again, want more training. And also, it didn't scare me from medicine. It made me want to keep going. It made me want to pursue medicine, you know, long-term, like athletic training long-term. it kept me in the profession, I think, longer than, at least in my area of Massachusetts, there's not a lot of ATs at schools. So yeah, it definitely made my heels dig into medicine. It didn't make me run away, which if you want to test yourself and see if you're made for this profession, if you have something like that happen to you, I think that's a good indicator that you'll make it.
That was going to be my next question. I was going to ask, since this happened to you as a student, how did that change your outlook on medicine? But it is really a make or break moment.
Yeah, I definitely, for a second, was like, wow, that was a lot. Like, if that's something that, long term, whatever I end up doing in my career long term, is that going to deter me from wanting that, level of intensity? And I was kind of like, yeah, I want to be in those rooms and, have my hand in the problem and fixing it and helping, stabilize someone and get them to, where they need to be. And the chances of that happening on a sports field is really high. So it was kind of, one fit into the other. So I was like, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be. So it was definitely, life changing and life affirming, I would say, career wise.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, that emergency response is really becoming a big deal for athletic trainers, like not from an athletic standpoint, but from like even at NATA, they had a like, what was it, like a tourniquet, kind of like some kind of presentation on tourniquets and emergent, like life or death emergencies that athletic trainers don't think about, like the Boston Marathon, or even now, unfortunately, it's a sad thing to think about, but like school shootings, like, a lot of times the athletic trainer is the only one that's going to be there to be able to stabilize someone and get them to where they need to go. And a lot of people don't think about that when they're going through athletic training, that they may have to respond to something like that.
Yeah, definitely changed. Our entire class kind of went into that more of like, okay, we need to have like some, like with school shootings mostly, like that was like our fear going into these secondary school settings. Like we need to be prepared for that stuff. Because that was definitely like on the uptick when we were in school, and that was like, okay, we not have like a terrorist attack happening at all of our high schools, hopefully not, but the chances of active shooters, just active shooter training, the kids were doing it, the staff was doing it. I was like, we need to be able to like act in those scenarios and know what to do. Because my friend who was a Marine, he had taken his belt off and he had a blood pressure cuff in his pocket. He was ready to, he knew all of that stuff from being in the military. Yeah. So he was like ready to go. And he's now since become a PA. But it was definitely something that our entire class, it definitely changed all of our, didn't deter anybody else. I wouldn't say no one else like bailed out of athletic training, but we all just kind of changed the way we looked at it. Like, oh, okay, we are someone that people will have to lean on in these extreme cases.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
Yeah, what a unique experience as a student.
Yeah, it was definitely something. We had taken a group picture, all the students together on the steps. There's our public libraries right in front of the medical tent. And it was a really cool picture because it has all of us and the athletic trainers in Massachusetts. Guy had made like these cool hats for us. They said like Adam on the front, it had Massachusetts, like the state kind of off the side of it. And then it had like the marathon logo, like the Boston Marathon logo. And then we all took pictures of them. And if you go back and look at any of the pictures of the bombing that day, of folks going in there and helping, you're going to see a sea of red hats. And it's all athletic trainers. And like, we didn't get a lot of,
oh, wow.
ESPN did one article, I think, on it. Of like, who are all these people in the red hats? And it was athletic trainers. And, NATA did a really good presentation. They brought us all out to Vegas for NATAs that year. They did a really nice presentation, but yeah, just kind of, other than like the niche kind of, corners that we operate in, it wasn't really reported that widely that athletic trainers were in there. And, we were right there next to the physicians and nurses and doing whatever we could to help.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. That's a lot for an athletic trainer, let alone athletic training student.
Yeah. So. But we went back the next year when we finished out the day and had a better day. And it was a better day the next year. It was really good.
How was that feeling?
It was
being
nerve
back?
wracking. I remember because they beefed up security a ton, rightfully. So you couldn't,
Uh-huh.
no T stations close by were like available. So you couldn't come like right to, Back Bay and walk like 2 feet to the med tent anymore. So I had to get off kind of far away.
Mm.
And I was like, you know what? I was like, I have so much like jitteriness and anxiousness. I was like, I'm going to get off at this stop. And it was pretty far. So I was like, I'm going to run. I'm going to like take a run to the marathon so I can like chill out a little bit. So I remember like jogging and kind of being like, you're okay. This is a better year. There's more security now. It's not going to happen again. And it's kind of like, this is going to be a better day than last year. So, yeah, that was definitely a better feeling. We all kind of, wrapped that one up being like, okay, we got the job done. We didn't get it done last year, but we got it done this year. Yeah. And obviously
Nice,
there's a
that's
lot
awesome.
of folks who either they were, injured in it, that they participated this year in some capacity, or I don't know if you guys remember the I call him the cowboy. He had helped out Mr. Bowman in his wheelchair. He had like a cowboy hat on. He was there at the finish line, kind of like saying hi to people, and got to take a picture with him. And yeah, it was
Nice.
definitely a positive day, a brighter day. Everyone was really happy.
Something that really, really, really stuck out with me for this story is prepare for everything, hope for nothing. That is a quote that I really like that.
Yeah, I mean, that really describes the athletic training community in general. We have to prepare for the worst possible thing. Like, we have to have some consideration for the worst possible thing. And, 9 times out of 10, thankfully, that doesn't, the worst doesn't happen. So it definitely is true. Prepare for everything, hope for nothing. It's like when people on like, you're covering an event and then they always ask, like, they always are trying to be like funny in a way, like, oh, you guys aren't doing anything today, or like, oh, you're bored. Well, that's a good day.
Bored is good.
Yes. If I'm not doing anything, that is a good day.
So I know that was probably something a little heavy to end on, but I think that it's very important to, and a lot of good things came out of it afterward from what she was saying. So,
and it really highlights the value of athletic trainers in the community and how our role assists with other healthcare professions.
Just going back to that healthcare team.
Exactly.
So, you guys, we post a question of the week in our AT Corner Facebook group along with an episode thread for each episode. So if you want to comment on this episode or if you want to answer our question of the week, head over to facebook.com/group/atcornerpodcast, or you can look on Facebook for our AT Corner community. If you guys are new, we do every other episode as education or stories. This one was a story episode. Next one is education. And Randy, we're doing
low back pain, baby.
Randy does a ton of reading to bring these episodes to you guys. So.
I don't know if you saw that EndNote post from a while ago, but that's the reading.
And as far as story topics, head over to our Instagram stories to check out upcoming stories, and then always submit your story for a chance to be featured. And I think that's all we have for today.
Thank you for helping us showcase athletic training behind the tape.